Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Welcome to episode 23 of the Brighter Horizons podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about A, how to get out of a slump, B, is violence ever necessary, and C, if we have time to get to it, the importance of being strong. So, you know what? Let's just jump into it. To be honest, this has been a very eventful past couple of weeks. Not for you guys, because we completely went MIA on the uploads. But we're going to get to that, and that has something to do with the whole slump situation. But the past 2 weeks have been rough, not going to lie.
For you?
For me, particularly. How about you? Was it not bad for you?
I had, I graduated and all that, so...
Oh, yeah, I guess that's fair.
Ooh, yeah, but I think it's very interesting because I felt like... I guess once you get into that mindset of, getting better and better and growing and becoming better in general... When you take the time to celebrate things, you sometimes feel like I could have used my time more wisely. And obviously not. I completely disagree with that. But it's kind of a thing in your own mind. And I think it's a problem that a lot of people have to face is when is it okay to rest? And sometimes you're going to feel like you don't deserve the rest. But I think to accept it when it comes along is... it's an important thing to learn because with me and that this past week, I did a lot of celebrating, whole lot of celebrating. And it was celebrating that's been planned for months. But I still feel like I should have spent those days doing something more productive. But obviously I don't really think that because those were the days I was celebrating my graduation.
Yeah, and you've been working at that for years.
So it shouldn't be something that you feel that way about, but still kind of feel like that,
Well, I mean... That's kind of just the way it is. Like every person striving for something feels like that when you're celebrating. But I mean, yeah, he graduated. Good for him. Let's get a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. He did it. But in terms of me, everything sucked. Like it was not good. But that's okay, right? Like you're gonna go through periods of life where things don't always work out. That's one thing to know about this podcast. Like I think that it's nice to sit here and say, "Don't worry, guys. Just be positive, and everything's gonna be okay." It's virtuous and, idealistic to say that. But the truth is you're going to go through things. There are going to be moments in your life where everything comes crashing down and things suck. But the point is that in the end, it will be okay. I'm not saying that during this whole slump situation, you're going to be happy, but learn to continue having that positive attitude because you know that you're going to get out of it.
Exactly. It's like if you're standing in a storm, you can still see light past the clouds, even though you're still stuck in the rain.
Oh, that's a good
right?
one.
I think that people get that misinterpreted, that sometimes times are bad. That's reality, and it's one you need to accept, is that things will get bad eventually. And it's the way to smile through that is by knowing that at the end of this, there will be happiness. There will be glory at the end of the sadness. So to instead be able to look past your sadness and see the future happiness, that's what I think is crucial and vital for your life. Because there's going to be times where you fall into a slump, right? You've clearly fallen into a slump for a little. I've fallen into a slump. I guarantee every single one of you out there has fallen into a slump. Now the question is, how do you P-Malls out of it? For those of you that don't know, that's a Brooklyn Nine-Nine reference, and also P-Malls is just slump backwards.
Yeah.
But the point still stands is, how do you get out of a slump? And I'm going to ask you this question.
Okay, well, I want to get into that. But before that, we need to explain the slump that we were in. Well, I can't really speak for you because you weren't in a slump. You were doing fine.
Yes.
For me, the slump just got pretty bad. So pretty much what happened was I got very sick, so I couldn't speak. And, yeah, my throat was sore for like a whole week, and my sinuses were clogged. I couldn't speak at all, so I couldn't even record or do anything. It was bad. Not to mention I didn't feel like even getting up out of bed. That's how low energy my body was. And so I simply sat in bed and tried to rest and get over it. And I usually don't get sick for this long, but for some reason this one lasted forever, at least a week and a half. In fact, I'm still feeling that residual feeling of being sick. But that was the first thing. The second thing that started the slump was every good habit I had or everything that I did in my day of substance died. Because as I was sick, I couldn't go to the gym anymore. And then every night I felt so exhausted. I just wanted to go to sleep. So I stopped journaling. And then I stopped waking up early in the morning because I wanted to rest as much as possible. So I stopped meditating as soon as I woke up. And then I found myself on my phone because I just didn't have anything else to do with my time. And boom, just like that, the slump got extended even more. And to top it all off, the Canucks lost.
That was a big part
Demoralizing factor there.
Was that before our last episode?
The funny thing is, yes. But the thing is, we recorded that episode a week before they lost. We edited it and uploaded it the day after I think they lost, which is why it was very unfortunate timing because the Canucks are like in the thumbnail, and also we talked a lot about them and how we have hope and everything.
That's brutal. Honestly, it was very sad to see them go, but again, we had a hell of a run. And,
That's true.
Next year we'll bring it back.
You know what they say? I mean, don't be sad that it's over. Be happy that it happened, right?
Exactly.
Because think about it.
Yeah.
What happened because of that? Some of your friends that I never even knew came to our house, and I've become really close with them just because they showed up for every single game. We went to Rogers Arena to watch games. We went to every game was at our house pretty much. We watched all the games as a group at our house. We went crazy every time they scored. We enjoyed that experience. And I haven't seen something unite us like that in a long time. So what I said in the last episode, it still stands. But yeah, I mean, the Canucks lost. It is what it is. But that day, it was a very defeating moment. In fact, I vividly remember them losing. Granted, it was like only a week or so ago. But right after the time had run out and we had lost, everyone, a room full of 13 people, by the way, sat in complete silence. Not a word was said. You could probably hear a pin drop. That's how quiet it was.
Because like the TV just played and we just let it roll, let all the stuff roll, and we just sat there.
In silence. Nobody said a word.
It was so sad because they almost brought it back. That's what was the soul-crushing part, is that they almost brought it back. But, again, I feel like... Actually, you know what? I think this is a great transition here because I think the same thing that gets you into a slump is something that gets you out of one. And it's just reversed.
Okay.
I think it's kind of like... It's a cool reflection, so let me get into it. So basically, my idea, and the way I see it, is that you're usually put into a slump because of a bad event, right? Something bad externally happens, which internally affects you. So the way to get out of it, I think, is to experience a positive external experience. And the way that we did it, or at least I've gotten out of my slump, I was in a bit of a slump last week where I wasn't getting a lot done and I didn't feel motivated. And again, what we always say is that motivation is what starts your engine and discipline is what keeps your foot on the gas. But eventually you'll get tired of putting your foot on the gas. That's a reality. Is nobody can give 100% forever. You will get tired. And at some point, your car is going to stop. That's when you hit a slump. When you're just ambling along without your engine. When your engine starts to idle, that's when you're in a slump. So how do you get it out of a slump? You got to start the engine again. You need to remind yourself why you do what you do. And what you need to search for is motivation. Because what leads to your slump is demotivation. It's when you start to give up on things because you no longer feel motivated to do them. And you'll get out of the slump by finding motivation. We found motivation through a bit of a meeting we had with our friend. And I think that's what really sparked it. Because I went back to the gym for the first time in a while this morning, and it really changed my mood for the rest of the day. And I felt a lot happier because I was like, you know what? I'm bringing back my old habits. I'm bringing back who I was when I was being who I'm supposed to be. That's a big, that's a lot of words together. Mm-hmm. But if you could break it down and think about the meaning, it's very important. You need to be able to motivate yourself or find motivation to keep moving, because the truth is, every person can only run on discipline for so long, and eventually you'll burn out. That's reality, right? None of these perfect things will last forever. Mm-hmm. So to understand that sometimes you have to rekindle that fire is an extremely vital part of your life.
100% true. Like you need something to get you going again. But I think that once you have the motivation, the next thing you need is a small win. Like it's kind of like a snowball almost. That one small win you can get will get you out of the slump, because that's pushing the ball down the hill of success. And now, one after the other, those bigger wins just slowly start to pile on, and then it becomes momentum, and you just keep going, you keep going, you keep going. So the next time you're in a slump, of course, look for that small win. Like for me, this is part of it. I did not feel like doing much for a whole week. And now that I'm out, like getting out of the slump, uploading the video today, like a short today, and recording the episode for this week is part of getting out of it. Going to the gym is part of getting out of it. Eating right, sleeping right, waking up and meditating, doing all these things are just small wins. You just pile up, you pile up, you pile up, and then you get out of it. And I feel much better this week now that I'm actually doing things. And I'd say that would be my advice for getting out of it. So going back to the question that we completely side rolled off of, but somehow came back to get out of a slump, find motivation, and then also find small victories. Like those little things will really help you catch on, I think. So what's your take on the situation?
Obviously I completely agree. And another way that I think people can get out of a slump is by throwing yourself into the deep end. Now, it's always something that's scary to do and something that a lot of people will always advise against. And I'm one of those people. Do I believe that always it's the smartest decision to go head first into danger, into the unknown? No, I don't think it's always the best decision. But sometimes you have to make a bit of a desperado. You have to make an attempt at something that you might lose on. Now, I know half of the people that might watch this are going to think, oh my God, I'm going to gamble everything because, I'm going to take a chance. But that's not what I mean, and you know it. What I mean is the point that you need to sometimes take a leap of faith, if you will, because at some point in your life, doing things the way that you've always done them isn't going to get you where you need to go. You're going to eventually get stuck because you can only do the same routine over and over and get results for so long. Like, for example, suppose you're trying to pave a highway, okay? Now, suppose it's a jungle road. You can keep cutting down leaves and trees and bushes over and over and over again. But eventually, you need to switch up what you're doing to get to that final goal. Now, you need to start, shoveling out the dirt. And then eventually, you need to start bringing in gravel. Then you need to bring in the asphalt. You need to bring the paving machine. You need to change your process. You need to change your systems. You can't keep going at the same thing the same way forever. Because think about it. If we take it back to our mountain idea, you're going to come across plenty of challenges climbing this mountain of life. You can't approach every problem the same way because every problem is unique. So on this path, you're going to come across different problems and you're not going to know the solution sometimes, but you have to take a guess. Instead of sitting there and doing nothing. Or for example, you got a brick wall in front of you. Are you going to keep smacking it with a wooden broom as if that's going to break that wall down? No, you better go build a goddamn hammer because you need to make a change in what you're doing because clearly what's currently happening isn't working.
You know the perfect analogy for this? Minecraft.
Yeah, honestly.
Look, you start with nothing. You start with wood. Then what? You go to mine coal. Everything's fine. Then you're like, oh my God, I got to go get iron. But wait, I got to get a stone pickaxe now. And then what? To get diamond, I need an iron pickaxe and so on and so forth. So the point is, as you slowly climb the ladder, you need to keep upgrading your solutions because the same solution you applied at level 1 is not going to apply to level 5. And that's just how every day is realistically. You're going to go through problems of varying difficulties and you just got to find newer solutions and tackle them in innovative ways. So it might be a leap of faith, like you said, but I think it's better to put yourself in that position than to drown and just be in a slump forever.
I completely agree. And sometimes what people say, it's such a common phrase, and I hate this phrase because one person always says it, and it pissed me off. But it has a lot of truth to it, and the saying is pressure makes diamonds. And, a lot of people use it in sports or whatever, but I think it's very applicable in life, is that when you are under pressure from life, you will create some of the greatest opportunities. Because if you really think about it, a lot of the greats had to be great. Like, they didn't have a choice. Like, for the people that really made it out of the absolute bottom of the barrel, they had to do it. And that's why they did it. Because they put themselves in the position of, I need to make it, right? They had the mindset of that is who I need to be. They created a hunger for success. And that's something you need to do to keep yourself motivated. I think that is a great way to combat your problem with discipline, is to become much more hungry for what you want and to create a necessity. Like, for example, as of late, we both recently quit our jobs. at McDonald's, obviously, bottom of the barrel job. But we wanted to make a change. And to do that, guess what? You got to make a change. You can't do the same thing over and over and expect a different result, right? It's like science. If you do an experiment once, you get one result. You do it again, you get the same result. You keep doing it over and over. Guess what? You do it 100 times, you're going to get the same result. You do it 1,000, million, 10 million times, it's going to yield the same result. And if you're not happy with that result, then why do you keep doing the same experiment?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you hold yourself in this place?
Mm-hmm. Well, you can't do the same thing and expect a different outcome. That's
exactly
just the reality of the situation. So, yeah, I guess that the point stands on make changes and see results. But, yeah, definitely putting yourself in a position where you have to succeed is something that not many people understand. And I think that's what separates the average from the great. Like, for us, it's holding ourselves accountable to certain tasks that we commit ourselves to. So if I say, I'm going to do this, now once I've said it to you, we made a promise that it's ironclad. You have to do this or else face some consequences. That's the rule. So by putting yourself in a position where there's no exit, there's literally the best saying for this. Burn the boats. You've never heard of this?
No.
Vikings used to go on boats and invade land, right?
Yeah.
But when they landed on shore, obviously some people are going to have doubts and want to go home. So what do? They light the boats on fire. So the only option is
To fight.
destroy the village or die trying. So life can be like that sometimes too. If you're in a very big slump and you need to get out of it and you want to reach astronomical success, maybe the only way to do that is to burn the boats of safety. Because now you're like a dog backed into a corner, and everyone knows that no matter what animal it is, you could even back a chicken into a corner. That thing becomes dangerous when it's there. So do the same thing to yourself willingly. Watch what kind of monster you become.
And again, don't take it too far, obviously. I think that within advice, you need to, I guess you shouldn't have to, but many irrational people exist.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, all advice can be taken too far. The point is, as an individual, it is your responsibility to take everything with a grain of salt and exercise control. When do you need to apply certain rules and when do you need to pull back a little bit? That's on you. I can obviously tell you these are the strategies that I use and this is what I would advise, but it's up to you to know, hey, maybe I am taking it a bit too far. Yeah. So if it's making you upset, extremely upset, and over time you start to become depressed or something, then stop doing it, reevaluate your situation, and look for a solution. Yeah. But you're 100% right. In every bit of advice, there's that caution you should include.
Yeah.
Fair.
But the premise still stands. I think that you need to take risks in life. If you play it safe all the time, I don't think you're really going to make it very far. Mm-hmm. So sometimes take a risk to get out of a slump because sometimes it might be the only way.
I'm laughing because I saw... Okay, so there was this video, right? Mm-hmm. And I can't even say what the guy said in the video, but it's pretty much this video of these guys, and they have like this big tree on the ground, and it's like snowy. So like the ground is covered in snow. There's a tree on the ground. They take a propane can and they like dump it all over the tree, and then they light something on fire, and then they walk up to it, and they're like holding the flame, but it's not lighting on fire, right? And then all of a sudden, just the fire spreads like crazy, lights the tree on fire, lights the ground on fire, and they start running back. Like it just exploded, right? Mm. And the audio says, "Remember, boys, beautiful women are everywhere. Artistic guys are not. We are the prize." That was the audio in the background. Okay?
Okay. I've seen videos like this before.
Where was I going with this? I just had the biggest epiphany, and now I lost it.
Are you calling me autistic? Because, like, that's what it sounds like.
No, it has something to do with taking a risk and, like, blowing up a tree and, like, look at where I got you. I don't know. I had a great thought. It'll come back to me later. All right. Speaking of lighting things on fire, let's talk about violence.
Well, actually, you know what's crazy is I wanted to talk about the Vikings a little because you
did,
bring that up. And I think the Vikings had created the best system. And I don't know. Like, I think that their premise of war was so brilliant, yet kind of foolish. And the idea of Valhalla might have been the smartest thing that anybody ever constructed.
Okay, elaborate.
Because supposing that some Viking somewhere down the line, if they created Valhalla, they're the smartest person to ever exist.
Okay, why don't you explain what that is for people who don't know?
Okay, so first off, Valhalla, for those of you that don't know, is like, it's kind of like Viking heaven, where It's like where Vikings, if you die in battle or die honorably, then you go to Valhalla.
It's like a Norse mythology.
Yeah, exactly. And supposing that it's not real and somebody made this up, they might be the most brilliant people of all time because you just created a way to make people want to go to war so badly they would do anything for it. And it was like kind of something I realized while watching Vinland Saga is like these people are going out there just to kill each other, to brutalize each other. And you see the vast contrast of like the Christians in the stories versus the Vikings. How the Vikings, they go to war, they're just like, yeah, we just want to kill. I want to die on the battlefield. I would love to die fighting this person because I would definitely get into Valhalla. And then you see the Christians are like, oh man, I don't want to kill anybody. I don't want to hurt anybody. This isn't what I want to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. And it's so brilliant to me that these Viking leaders found a way to convince every single one of their troops that they have to go to war. Otherwise,
They're going to hell.
Yeah, exactly. You've got a worse sentence waiting for you after death.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I believe Norse mythology has 9 realms of life.
Oh, yeah.
And so the highest one is it? No. That's not the same.
What, are you talking Asgard?
Yeah.
What you're trying to
Is
say?
it the same?
I don't know if that's... I think that's Norse
No,
mythology.
maybe... No,
Yeah, it is.
I'm pretty sure it's the
Yeah,
same.
because Thor is Norse mythology.
Yeah, but Valhalla is also Norse mythology,
I
right?
guess. Or maybe it's...
I think
No,
it's one of
it
the
must
9
be.
realms of
But
existence.
anyway, sidetracking.
Either way. Yeah,
Yeah.
the point is it's one of the 9 realms, and it's like the highest, and then you can also like go to hell if you don't try to kill a
Yeah,
bunch
so
of
it was
people.
kind of brilliant to me that these people were able to convince so many other men to just kill themselves to
Yeah.
go to some promised afterlife.
Okay, here's my question to you now. The big question is, like I said in the intro, is violence necessary? Give me a short answer, and then we'll discuss it. So,
Okay.
what is your thought? Yes
Simply, in a perfect world, no. In our world, yes.
or no? Okay, I agree. I agree with
Alright?
that statement.
Can I elaborate on it?
Fire away.
So, my point is that every single problem ever in history could have been solved with words. It's unbelievable, but
Diplomacy.
diplomacy could solve every single world issue, right? If people were good people. And it's the same idea against gun control in America. And I've talked about this so much, right? Is everybody's like against gun control in the States. Or there's a lot of people against gun control. And outside of the States, it's why you see that violent crime rates involving firearms is so much less outside the States as opposed to in the States. Because everybody has a weapon. Everybody has a tool to fight. So when everybody can fight, crime is higher. When everybody can't fight, crime is a lot lower. So in the same way, clearly increased violence is going to lead to increased problems. It's that I think these problems can be solved, and maybe that's just naive optimism, but had humans been good species that cared for the betterment of one another instead of oneself, then I think in every situation, any problem in the world could have been solved through speech. But we instead chose to nuke each other.
I disagree.
Hmm.
I think that the thing is, at first I agreed with you, but the more and more I think about it, I don't think so. Because regardless of how idealistic we want to be as humans and say like problems can be solved without violence, I believe majority of problems can be, but not all of them. And you want to know the greatest exhibit of it?
What?
War. War is not beneficial to anyone. Now, the thing is, there's a quote from Bleach, and it says that war is what happens war only occurs when it is righteous for both sides to do so. Okay? So my perspective on it is if one group goes instigating and invading, that's a very different story than a war where it's a mutual beginning of fighting. I think there's a difference. Now, granted, in the public eye and the way that it's classified in current events, you could call it war for sure. But me personally, what I see, like, for example, what Germany did back then, comparing that to what's happening. Oh, wow, that's actually the same thing. Maybe I'd say what Germany did versus what's happening in Israel and Palestine right now is a different story. Although one group of people is certainly stronger than the other. Both sides have had their conflicts. Both sides have done wrong things, and both sides have had wrongs done to them, right? So I believe there is a difference
Wait,
there.
just so we're clear, you say that statement regarding Israel-Palestine, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I was
Not
gonna
Germany.
say,
Obviously
if
not
you were
Germany.
saying that.
No.
I mean, I think there were still some wrongs done to Germany.
For sure, 100%. But like the point
yeah.
is, what they did was far worse
Yeah,
because they
okay,
started
fair
the
point.
invasion,
Yeah.
right? But I see those two events as different. So in the case of an invasion, I don't justify that violence by any means. But in terms of war, how exactly do you go about resolving something that you both cannot agree on? There is no way to reconcile
That's why I
these
said
differences.
in a perfect world, an idealistic world, people aren't greedy. People
But
don't
what if
want
it's
more
not
for
about
them.
greed?
Yes, it always is.
How can you say that?
It
though?
always is. It always is. Every single time, it will always be about greed. Every war, every battle, every fight ever had was over greed. Every single conflict on the planet is over greed.
What about a fight for freedom?
Two places don't fight against each other for freedom.
But what if like you're held captive and you start a revolution?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the other side is fighting for their own greed. That's my point. Every single one. It will always, 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 always be greed. It's always greed. At the core of every single problem is greed. The biggest killer of society and humankind is greed. Even at the individual scale, greed is what kills the mind.
Okay, let me ask you this then. Do you believe that, for example, in Israel Palestine, like one big thing is the fact that, see, I'm still sick. Oh my God, I can't get it out. Like my entire body's plugging up again. Do you believe that in Israel Palestine, for example, that conflict can be chalked up to two things: A, history, and B, religion? So do you believe that religious wars are the same as every other conflict?
Yes.
Is it still greed?
I think
But-
it's no, because like for example, they could have tried to create a two-state. They could have tried to enforce a two-state solution.
But what if it's one specific area? Like, for example, the whole point is that Jerusalem is the
Jerusalem,
Holy
yeah.
Land, right? So how do you reconcile the fact that, well, actually, you know what, now that you think about it, there is certainly, like, you could even split it in, like, time frame sharing, like certain months of the year. But then what if that conflicts too?
No, my point is again, violence is never justified in an idealistic world. Because in an idealistic world, people would be able to share things, right? It's not communism. It's the idea that people would be content with what they have. And that people wouldn't hold other people down to get ahead. People would instead just climb the ladders of life themselves. And also, you brought up the quote from Bleach, so I want to actually bring up a quote from The Art of War. And the quote is that nobody in history has ever benefited from a prolonged war.
Yeah.
And I guess Sun Tzu was quite a wise man. And I believe that these wars that we fight nowadays aren't even about what we try to make them about. We try to tell ourselves to believe that they're about one thing when we usually fight for something else. And again, I don't believe that violence is ever justified in an idealistic world because all problems can be solved without it. And you know, actually, if you really want to, I would tell. I mean, spoiler alert for Vinland Saga in case any of you guys are going to watch it. But in the very last episode of the second season, it's when Thorfinn meets, or I guess second to last episode, where Thorfinn meets with Canute, and they stand there, and Canute asks him, he's like, "You're not gonna fight me?" And he's like, "We don't really know each other. I have nothing to fight you over." Or no, he said that to somebody else, like
Yeah.
the guy who was punching him.
Well,
He's
the
like, "Why
people
won't
who
you?"
are
Yeah, he's
stopping
like-
him from talking to Canute.
Exactly. Or well, no, and then Canute asked him. He's like, "Oh, you definitely could have beat that guy in a fight. Why would you not just fight him and talk to me? They would have let you talk to me." And he said, "I don't know that man. I have no prior history. I've never even exchanged words with him. For what reason would I fight him?" And all these people in war senselessly kill each other without knowing a damn thing about the person that they just shot. And it's a really sad reality. I mean, it's a very real reality that these wars have to be fought. But it really makes you reflect on what the hell humans are doing right now. We
true.
kill each other for each other. And it just seems so foolish in the grand scheme of things. But again, I think that we grow up with a little bit of naive optimism and a
true.
belief that this world is perfect when it's not. But I think that that's something you should apply to your own life. The idea of senseless violence. Because while on a grand scale, violence may sometimes be the answer, on an individual scale, I think it rarely is.
Mhm.
Although we resort to it sometimes, it should never be a first response, but instead a last resort.
Yeah, 100%. I think that many violent altercations can be avoided by simply exercising control over your own emotions and temper. Many people will flare out and start attacking others for no reason other than the fact that they got offended over something. Or the biggest one, I think the stupidest case of this that I will never condone ever is road rage. Why on God's green earth would you, driving your car on your way to work, somebody cuts you off, okay? What does A, honking at them, B, cutting them off again, C, brake checking them, swearing at them, flipping them off, doing all these things, what does that accomplish? Because all you do is piss the other guy off, because clearly, if he had the gall to cut you off, he is not going to take your insult as a, I'm sorry, I was obviously in the wrong. He's going to take it as a, oh, this guy's challenging me, let's go at it. And then next thing you know, you two are swerving through traffic, brake checking each other, and the next thing you know, somebody completely uninvolved in your feud gets hit by one of you idiots. Why kill or injure innocent people or yourself or that other guy over something that you're going to forget about in the next 24 hours anyways? Mm-hmm. Think about every road incident you've ever had. Unless it was a severe crash, you've probably forgotten 99% of your road rage incidents because it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. So what is the point in engaging in violence when you could just forget about it and move on? Like I always say, I'm the number one proponent of not using your horn because you're mad at somebody. I have never honked, okay, maybe not never, maybe like once or twice in my lifetime of driving, have honked at somebody because I'm mad at them. Very rarely do I do that. I'm always just like, okay, if you cut me off, like, I'm not going to appreciate it by any means, but I drive safe. So if that's what happens, that's what happens. Like, people are like that.
And again, the idea of intention is so crucial here because I guarantee that maybe you'd be rushing to work and you would go and cut somebody off because you might be late.
True.
But in your eyes, you're completely justified in that action. So everybody's always justified in their own eyes, which is a bit of a scary reality to think about. Mm-hmm. And another thing, and it's kind of relating to what you said about you don't really remember all this stuff, is I saw this quote and it said, would you rather, if you were given the choice, would you rather relive your best memory or erase your worst one? And I guarantee you that most people would relive their best one. And I can't say that for everybody because I know some people have gone through a lot of tragic things that they probably hope to forget. But I think 90% of the population of people that have really gotten, for example, I'd say people in like these first world countries that don't know of like real struggles across the earth, they would pick to relive their best memory because we always want to exist in happiness than in sadness, obviously. And we would choose, I think that we have, because in that scenario, you can either choose to try to, I mean, I guess in both scenarios,
the backtracking is crazy.
Yeah, but my point being that you always want to live in the good, always, right? And I'd say that it's easier for us to focus on the good and forget about the bad than it is to get rid of the bad and then look for the good. If instead you focus instantly on just searching for the good in your life, you're going to find no reason to be angry. Because now with me, as much I try as hard as I can, but sometimes obviously I falter. Obviously I get angry. Obviously I get sad. But when I'm at my best, I see life pretty clearly. And it's another quote that I've definitely said before, and it's that you are like water. When you're boiling, you cannot see your own reflection. So when you're angry or when you're in a bad state, you can't really truly reflect on who you are. You act irrationally or you act in ways that aren't in line with who you are because you don't see who you are. But when you calm your mind, when you lose that idea of violence and anger, that's how you can clearly reflect on who you are. And again, I want to backtrack this even further to the slump situation. I think that the only way you can also get out of a slump is by understanding who you are, where you want to go. Reflection is one of the most important things that we've ever talked about. And I think the most important thing that we've talked about is to see yourself, to calm your mind, and also to forgive yourself because you're going to make mistakes. Times are going to be bad, and you're going to lose it sometimes. Sometimes I lose it. I lose it all the time. I'll get angry and irrational, and I'll be rude to the people around me. But I forgive them, and I forgive myself. And I say, hey, man, you're going to make mistakes. It's a part of life. You got to grow up and try to change that. You got to try and fix that. So to instead grow up and deal with your mistakes by searching for ways to improve and reflecting on yourself is the number one way to focus on happiness as opposed to sadness.
True. So my next question to you is, so we're under the agreement that in an ideal world, violence is not necessary, but in our world, it is.
Sadly, yeah.
In certain situations.
Yes.
Now, once again, just because it's necessary at the extreme end of things does not justify implementing it on a daily basis.
That's why it should be a last resort.
Last resort. It's always the last resort. Because realistically, if you approach things in a calm situation, like I've met some crazy people before who have done bad things, but I know that most of them wouldn't do that to me because I've never approached them with a sense of, what's the word? Aggression. Like I've always been very calm with people. I always try to be nice because number one, that's just who I am. And number two, why make an enemy when you can make a friend? Mm-hmm. That's one of the biggest lessons I learned while watching Suits, right? You can never have too many favors in the bank. These are all things that they said throughout the show. And it's true. It's very true in life. It might be a naive way of seeing things, but at the end of the day, why piss somebody off when you could be their friend, right? So I'd say that's the biggest thing to take away from this. So the last thing that we got to talk about here is the importance of being strong. Because like we said, sometimes violence is the only answer because we don't live in a perfect world. But what good is it if violence is the answer and you can't do it? You know the perfect person who talked about this? Jordan Peterson. He said that, in fact, he got attacked for this statement.
I already know.
But he said that you should be a monster and learn how to control it. People called him out on it, said that he was the worst man alive. Like, I couldn't believe it when I heard that what these people said to him. And then he explained. He said, if you're not violent because you are incapable of violence, it's not virtue. It is only virtue if you are capable of violence, but you choose not to engage in it. Think about it. If you could kill a man easily with your bare hands because you're just a straight killer, but you choose not to, you approach every situation with diplomacy, kindness, and you help those around you. That is truly virtuous. But if you're nothing but skin and bone, you can't harm a fly even if you tried. It's not virtuous to not engage in that activity because you physically can't do it. When push comes to shove, if it comes down to that, do you want to be on the receiving end of it? Like people always say, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. You don't want to be out of your element. You don't want to be in a situation where you have no control because you know that it could come to that. There are a lot of situations in life where it comes down to violence. Even though you want to avoid it, that's just a sad reality of this world. But you see so many people die over it because, A, either they instigated it and made violence not the last resort and started it too early, or B, they were incapable of defending themselves and then they got burned.
I think that the whole premise of it is to be prepared, to have an umbrella for when the storm comes. You don't need to always use it, but you sure as hell should always carry it around. And you need to understand that bad things are going to come eventually, so why not be prepared for it? And you just seem to have an epiphany.
The way you said it, you don't need to use it always, but you sure as hell should carry it around. Do you think that that's what everybody who is an advocate for guns in America thinks?
Yeah, but they're fools for that.
I mean, I personally agree, but...
Because I don't think that a gun is a necessary form of violence ever. Because
See, you know the problem?
Yeah.
It's because it's written into their... It's constitution in the States, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's written in their constitution that they have a right to own firearms.
Yeah, I know.
I wonder what the founding fathers were smoking when they wrote that one.
I don't know. I feel like it's just such, like, grade, it's kindergarten level philosophy. don't punch people and don't get punched. Okay, well, don't get punched is a bad example,
I
but
feel like then what somebody who advocates for that would say is essentially you're saying we should chop off everybody's arms so they can't punch each other.
true. Okay, don't hit each other with sticks.
Okay, better.
That's like don't hit people with weapons.
Yeah.
Don't hit people, man. Just don't hit people.
True.
Like-
But I mean, I don't know. It's a very difficult conversation to have because on one hand, are we too far gone to save it? Yeah, I think so. I think we're way past the point of
Okay, I think that's just in the States.
true, but I think it's like
Well, I guess okay. There's other like war-torn countries where I think that violence has just become such a natural part of their like ecosystem. But with the States, it's the problem is that you allowed your country to get flooded with firearms. Obviously, now there's no going back.
Yeah.
Now you're cooked because guess what? Everybody is gonna have a gun. This is your like they created their own demise. You know, you ever think about that? Is that humans are always our own demise? Like we never really fall to anything else.
Pompeii.
Well, Volcano's basically a dude. All right, let's be honest. Like,
Huh?
let's be honest. But okay, my point being,
Other than natural
Yeah.
disasters,
and
we are our
even
own-
sometimes
Actually, yeah,
natural disasters, we cause a lot of them.
because of global warming and all
Yeah.
that, rising sea levels and all that. Yeah, that's actually a good point.
We are always going to be our undoing, which is kind of sad. The smartest species are always the ones to kill themselves, which makes you wonder: are we the smartest species? Right? Because like other species, like for example, an alligator has been around forever. What? It's true, man. They're dinosaurs. You know that?
I know that. You're
Yeah.
right.
So they've been around forever, and yet we have been around for such a little time, and we're headed for disaster already.
Not only are we heading for disaster, we're taking everybody else with us too.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the worst part.
So, if anything, I'd say we're kind of one of the worst species to ever walk the earth.
I think we are, honestly. I feel like many people chalk it up to like mosquitoes. I give mosquitoes a close second because they give nothing. Well, I mean, I guess they give something because they give like food for frogs and stuff, but whatever.
No.
Point
they
is,
just
mosquitoes, terrible. Humans, number one. Worst thing ever. But again, I mean, can you dwell on the fact that you were born a human? No. But I think the only thing you can do is be the best human you can be for yourself and everybody else around you. And that's the
Yeah.
whole point. Like, self-improvement has changed over the years for sure. But I think that it's gotten so soft, which is something that we did have a conversation about yesterday. Just because you're the smartest guy in the room or you have the most money doesn't always mean that you're capable of protecting yourself when it comes down to it. Like, for example, if Elon Musk gets jumped, what's he going to do?
he probably got a bodyguard. Let's be honest.
True.
In the situation, let's suppose he's on his own. Yes, but
Yeah.
okay, I get that premise, but I don't think that should be a number one goal.
No,
Or
I
like
don't think that
a-
your goal should be to, like, hurt people, but I think it should be to protect what's close to you.
Mm.
Because realistically, why do, like, you hear all these stories. For example, look at Terry Crews, right? He got super jacked. Why? Because he wanted to stop his mom from getting beat up by his dad. People become strong or mainly men become strong to protect the people closest to them. It's a pillar of our being. It's always been a part of that. Why do you think male lions even exist? They don't bring much to the table. If you've ever watched a documentary, you know that the people putting in the most effort are the ladies. They're consistently hunting and helping feed the cubs. They raise them all on their own. What do the dads do? They fight. They protect the pride when enemy lions try to take over. That's their sole duty. Now, they'll help in the hunt sometimes, but most of the time, the lionesses are the ones absolutely cooking it up out there. The dad is just there to protect, and that's what we should all strive to be as well. That doesn't mean it should be your only goal, for sure. But to be strong for those around you, I think that's a very virtuous thing to do.
And again, if you take it back to the be prepared for the storm, that doesn't mean just physically. Like when we say be strong, it means everything, right? Financial stability, mental stability. Where do you think all these broken people come from? They come from a broken home because their parents weren't the strongest people. And that's probably because the parents before them weren't, and it's an endless cycle. So the question is, who's going to break that cycle? It takes a mentally strong person to raise mentally strong people. And that's why I'm glad that our parents are who they are, because I think that they've done a hell of a lot for us being the people that they are. But even both really anybody, especially to your kids, I'd say in the future, but really to any young individual out there, you want to be a role model. You want to be influential, because if you can change that person's lives, you can create that domino effect, that cascade of dominoes, I guess. You know? I don't think that was the best way to say that.
Yo,
What?
bag that. Why did we have buddies in grade 7 or grade 6?
I don't know.
To be a role model, to help, to show them this is what it's like to have somebody to look up to. And when we were in kindergarten, we had buddies as well, people we looked up to, like, wow, I can't wait to be like that one day. So it's instilled in us from a young age to be somebody to look to, be that beacon for your family, your friends, all the people around you. You want to be that guy that inspires everyone. It's funny because the TikTok I posted today was literally about who inspires you.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And those people are inspirational because of the way they live their life. Mm-hmm. So one day, my goal is to become big, successful, help as many people as I possibly can. And then one day, when somebody asks their friend on a podcast 10 years down the line, who inspires you? I hope that our names come up one day because we created good in the world. So the truth is, how can you create good in the world if you're not a strong person? And like you said, not just physically fit, mentally fit, financially fit, all these things come into play. And that's why we always say that success is a 360 game. Like, you got to be strong on all fronts.
Yeah.
And the best part about that is war is literally a game of finding a weakness on that front. Why do you think that if a head-on attack doesn't work, they flank? Because they find that one spot that is weak, and they will put pressure on it until you break. So life is the same way. It'll force you into these situations where you realize, damn, this part of me is really weak. I got to work on it. And that's where being uncomfortable and being in a slump comes from. You're in a slump because life put pressure on a spot that you were not prepared to handle yet. You were not capable. So you fell, and now what are you going to do? You're going to rise up better than you did before, or you can take the weak man's way out and just crumble and fall and give up on life. But the best way out of it is to rise up, fight back, get better, and just keep improving in life. And the thing is, we always compare life to an EKG machine.
Yeah.
Or it's like the wave up and down, right? So the best part about it is once you hit the slump, you hit the bottom, there's only one way up now. Only one way to go now, which is up. So the best part about that is, ideally, if you treat your life like a stock chart, if you've ever looked at one indication for people who trade stocks is if a stock closes at a higher high, it means it's going up. So let's say that we started at this point, we crashed down here. This is a lesson in financials. Pay attention, ladies and gentlemen. So if we start here at this stock price, we crash a little bit, we come down to here, okay? The next time we bounce back and we come up, if we rise above the level we started at, that's a good indication that the stock is going to continue climbing. Whereas if we crash and then we come up, we stop here and then go back down again, that's called resistance. But the worst one is if we start here, we go down, we come back up, get stuck, and then we bottom out lower than before. Now you know that the stock is probably going to go even lower. So the point is, on your PMOL's journey, the reverse slump, chasing success, your point is to go beyond what you were before so that you create this trend for the rest of your life where when you hit the bottom, there's a point of resistance. You don't go below that. Don't start falling into bad habits. You might lose some of the good ones for sure. That's part of a slump. But don't break the one or two habits that you said, I'll never do those things. Like, let's say you're somebody who said, I'll never smoke or I'll never drink. Don't start drinking because you fell into a bit of a slump. That's how alcoholics are born.
Yeah.
Point is, you set this line of resistance, bounce down, bounce up, and go beyond where you were before. Look at that, guys. We're all just stocks.
Yeah, I think, it's actually very interesting that you think about it, because if you really break it down to stocks, value is completely arbitrary. It's only set by the people that actually care about that stock.
True.
So, similarly, your value is determined by the people around you, and including yourself. I think that, do you think that you are more than one entity? It's a very interesting question. But I mean, just to round off the episode, it's just a little quick fire question.
Yes.
You do.
I believe that I am multiple entities because of this. What I am is not just a physical being, because to everybody else around me who doesn't see me on a daily basis, their only understanding of me is their perception and recollection of their times meeting me or talking to me. So that image that they have in their mind is not really me. They're not going to know everything about me, and they're not going to be able to sum it up in that small image. Like all your friends, you're not going to know them perfectly because of the interactions you have with them. You'll know them good for sure, but not perfectly. So your image of that person is going to be different than their image of themselves and everybody else's image of them as well. So now you have thousands of versions of yourself. So I don't know if you can call yourself one entity because you are viewed by so many and interpreted in so many different ways that the reality of the situation is that there's just so many of you out there.
I completely agree. I mean, actually, I didn't even think about it that deep. I thought it more about how other people view you, and then there's how you view yourself, and those two images are always going to contrast.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I completely agree with the fact that everybody is going to view you differently. So the real question is, whose view are you going to take? The one of some rando who has a very negative view because they had one negative interaction with you, or the view of yourself, of who you really think you are, the guy who's been with you your entire life.
Believe it or not.
Yeah. And also, it's kind of a quote from 7 Years by Lucas Graham, where he says, "Only those I really love will ever really know me." And we often get caught up in the idea of how everyone else in the world perceives you when none of these people know anything about who you are. Like, people will go to school so concerned with what everybody thinks of them, yet none of them know anything about them.
Yo, that's true.
Right.
And you know, the other thing that really blew my mind yesterday in the conversation was when our friend was talking to us, and he said that even if, what did he say? Even if like 1% of the world loved you or something, that's like,
Or hated you. And
Hated
no,
you.
basically, if you stood within the biggest stadium in the world in China, that's it seats 150,000 people, biggest stadium in the world. And if you stood in the center and everybody booed and threw tomatoes at you, that was only one out of 53,000
300.
300ths of the population. Right there. That one fractional percentage.
So even if 150,000 people are hating on you, even on the internet, let's say you get 150,000 hate comments, that is 1/53,000th
3,000.
of the population that hates you. So you have the possibility of going out there and making the other 53,000 150,000 addition people. Yeah, I just read complicated.
The math
It's
was
very-
not it there.
Yeah.
But
The point is, even if all these people hated you, there's still so many more out there. So
Right.
just don't care about what people think, man. And realistically, even if you live your life, I don't even know if many of us will ever even will we even see 150,000 people in our lifetime?
Yes. What? Are you insane?
150,000 different people.
Yes. You won't remember all of them. You won't remember 149,000 of them. But you sure as hell will see 150,000 people. Come
Okay,
on.
yeah, true.
That's like, come on.
Okay, fine, double that number, 300,000, 450,000. Like the
7
more you
million.
add it up,
You never see
you're
every
never
person.
going to meet that many people.
I know. I guess it's...
You won't even meet a fraction of the population. You probably wouldn't even meet 1 million people in your lifetime. Okay, meet guaranteed. See might be a different story,
Yeah.
depending on where you are.
Me is a different story, I guess.
I guess if you lived in like...
A very highly densely populated area.
Actually, yeah, that's true. That's totally possible. Like if
Yeah.
California alone has like 40 million, you
Yeah,
could probably see 1 million people in a day.
Yeah.
Whatever. The point is, there's so many people out there, so don't get hung up on like the few people that hate you. I don't even know how we got here.
Yeah.
Great episode, though. I'm actually very happy with that.
And-
That's a good
All right,
conversation.
we're gonna close it off as we come to the end of our time here, and we want to thank you guys for sticking around to the end of the episode. But main takeaways from this episode is to ensure that you get out of your slumps by either motivating yourself or throwing yourself into the deep. Yep, the
Take a
deep
break.
end,
Take a second.
and moving forward in your life, trying to make changes and trying to do something different to overcome obstacles in a different way. But before you go, as always, it's time for quote
Of
the
week.
hit 'em.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got a good quote today. We got a good quote today. I wonder if you're going to be able to guess this. I don't think you will, but he's a very, very famous historical figure. Human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle.
Winston Churchill.
No.
Can I get a hint or? Ford.
No.
Thomas Edison.
He was an activist.
Activist.
Yes.
I mean, does Abe Lincoln count?
I mean, technically, yes, but no, he wasn't the person who said it. If you remember this one very specific video of this little girl, she once said, "He died for our sins."
Jesus. Oh, is it Martin Luther King?
Yeah. That video was so funny, man. But, I mean, the reason why I chose this quote is because, like we said, you're going to hit slumps sometimes, and that's just the part of chasing, well, maybe it's justice, maybe it's success, whatever it is that you're chasing. You're going to hit points of resistance. You're going to find suffering. You're going to struggle, and it's going to suck sometimes. But part of being in a slump is getting out of it. And then once you hit rock bottom, you realize a lot of things you got to change, maybe build up certain aspects of your personality that were weak before. And then what do? You skyrocket back up and even further than you were before.
And with that, thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode 23 of the Brighter Horizons podcast. And do you have
we have an announcement. So, after the slump, like I said, you got to shoot past where you were before, right? One thing about us was our uploads were a little bit inconsistent. I'm being real with you because the way we run this channel is the way we live our lives. Honestly. That's what I like to believe because we're authentic. I like to be honest with the audience. So for you guys, I'm telling you now, every day there will be a short uploaded. So look out for that. But more importantly, every week our upload will go on Friday. So every single Friday, our episode will be out. If you don't want to miss it, you can click the little bell icon thing. What do you call it? The notification bell?
Notification bell.
Click the notification bell. Yeah. We love you guys. But yeah, that was just my announcement. This is the schedule now. So watch out for that, and we wish you luck. Thank you.
All right. Back to the outro. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode 23 of the Brighter Horizons podcast. Thank you for sticking around to the end. We really appreciate it. And make sure that you go out there and get out of your slumps. Never resort to violence and become strong. And make sure you live a positive life, y'all. Peace out.